Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 Butterfield Bermuda Championship. This is my preview and pick show. I am going to be doing one show for all these kind of, if you want to call it the island swing, until we get into some of the more normal terms, which I believe would be the Houston Open coming up here in a couple months. Oh, not a couple months, a couple events. But I'm going to go through everything that you need to know about the Bermuda Championship. We're going to break down the course, break down the skill rankings of the players that you want to look at. We're going to do a quick recap of the Zozo, and then we'll get into all the analysis that you are accustomed to. And with that said, let's do this. Okay, so just a real quick recap. Of course, Hideki Matsuyama ended up being your winner. I don't know how much coverage you guys got to see, but I watched a bit, even though it was very late night. We only got to see a few hours each night, but of course, you had some weather Friday, Saturday that made the course a little tougher. Thursday and Sunday was probably the best conditions where the guys actually could shoot. I just thought it was interesting that those guys struggled a little more than I thought with that course. You had guys that really struggled, like Will Z, that I was pretty excited about. Even Morikawa there for a bit did. I mean, he made a comeback, but still, it was just really interesting to see where it come out. And the short of it is, what you need is, someone that can ball strike the crap out of the ball, but the putter's got to get live, and that's Hideki, right? To a tee. Those greens, which was kind of a reminder of how Augusta-like those greens are. Hence, the bent grass, a lot of slope. And that's where the guys struggled. If they could do well on the greens, they did well in the tournament. Hideki, which is always just shocking when Hideki pops, like he did at the Masters, it's the putter just goes in fuego. Now, we don't have stroke gain analysis, but if I had to take a gander, he probably gained 3 or 4 strokes on the greens against the field. And if Hideki's hitting the ball like he does, it's pretty much game over for whatever tournament he's going to be in. With that said, I thought it was kind of interesting. If you saw his presser beforehand, he mentioned that, his swing coming into it or his game was like a 1 out of 10. They mentioned this multiple times on the Golf Channel also. But then, also went out and performed. And what I thought was interesting also is this tournament meant a ton to him, of course, local to the area. But when he lost to Tiger, he said, I will come back and revenge when he gets to come back here and play. And he did it. I actually had bets on Sebastian Munoz and Steele, really just because they were decent odds. And also they were kind of popping from what I was looking for. But that did not come into fruition. But long story short, congrats to Hideki. And we learned a little more. Like I said, the problem was last year was at Sherwood. And it was so long for me to even remember a lot about the previous tournament. And again, with just the coverage, with no stroke gain data, terrible coverage that we're going to get on that kind of tournament, especially across over Japan. It wasn't a whole lot that I could provide you guys in that way. So I apologize, but this show is going to be a little better for the Bermuda. And with that said, let's go talk about that. Okay. So let's break down the course real quick. So I call this the vacation swing, the island tour, but short, they're heading over to Southampton, Bermuda. Typically you see Hendrik Stenson here. He's got a place in the Bahamas, but I noticed he was not. The field, just in short, is probably the worst player field that we've seen in a while. And a lot of these guys that are playing here are either coming out, the rookies that we're seeing on the Corn Ferry, guys that want to take vacations or played here before and just love the area. And it is a beautiful course. It's a beautiful area. So you kind of it's a win-win. If I was on the PGA Tour, I've always said when it gets to the island swing, I'd be all over that. They're going to be at the Port Royal Golf Course, and they've been here for the past 2 years playing the Bermuda. The Butterfield is, I guess, a new sponsor. I will not be saying that ever again. We will just refer to it as the Bermuda. But as I mentioned, we have we're going to be missing out on stroke gain data for this. They just ShotLink doesn't go over to these courses, but we can look at, this gives you a little better picture, of who can do well here. So, just from the past winners, doing that analysis. And also we can look at other island courses to get some understanding. Your architect was Robert Trent Jones. Course opened back in 1970, and then he did a large renovation in 95. I believe there was some storms that came through there, which trashed the course. And so he kind of came back, redid it in 95. It is a par 71, but a very short course as in length. It's less than 7,000 yards, coming in at 6,828. We have Bermuda fairways, and we've got 2-inch Zoysia rough, which was also what we saw Over at the Zozo at Narshino was also as always rough, and then they are putting on Tiff Eagle Bermuda Greens, which we see a bit at, of course, in the Florida swing. You could look at some courses there, but where I'm going to kind of focus, as I mentioned, is more on the island courses. I think two things come into play, even though some are Paspalum, it's very close to Bermuda, but also the wind and the way that these courses play, I think makes sense to me that I'm going to reference kind of more of the island courses. The player field is a little bit smaller than the 156 we're used to. We have 132 players in the field, and it is going to be cut down to T65, so 65 in ties. Over the past 2 years, you had one under back in 2020, I believe it was, and then you had two over, I believe it was 2021. Your past winners was Brian Gay last year, which showed no form whatsoever. I don't think he even had a win for like 10 years or something like that. Then just came out. But everybody that, if you follow golf and you are an analyst, knows that when it comes to Bermuda Greens, short course, Brian Gay is going to be very live. And also he had a third place finish the previous year. So back to the horses for courses, this definitely applies. He shot 15 under, which, comparative to the previous year wasn't that great, but there was a bit of wind. And he also went into a playoff with Wyndham Clark. Now, you might think Wyndham Clark, he just bombs the ball. But honestly, Wyndham Clark is a really good putter. And his typically approach is what falls apart for Wyndham. But he, has shown some life, had a pretty good showing over in Japan. And honestly, I don't even know if he's in this field. I didn't even take a look for that. But we will when we're in there. The previous year was Brendan Todd who won, shot 24 under. Then you had Harry Higgs, again, back to kind of like a Wyndham Clark model. Then you had Brian Gay that came in third, shooting 18 under. Higgs shot 20 under. And also Brendan Todd, if you don't remember at this time, who won this tournament and then went on kind of a, I think he won two tournaments in a row and could have won a third. So that was kind of his breakout comeback for Brendan Todd, who, amazing enough, is also not in this field to come back. I don't know. I just think that's kind of shocking. But either here or there. The greens are just a little bit bigger than the average tour size green, around 6,000 square feet. They are typically very slow greens, even though they are Bermuda, due to the wind. Typically, when you get in these kind of areas, they got to let the greens grow out a bit because wind at any time can get pretty crazy and you want the ball blowing all over the place. There is a bit of sand. You got 88 sand bunkers, and there is some other water, except, of course, along the ocean. There's 4 water hazards, and water comes into play on 5 holes. And that stimp meter is actually incorrect. That's from previous. That needs to say Velcro or slow. So forget that was from the past Narashino that we just saw. Okay, course defense. Just already mentioned this. Wind is probably the number one. It is a coastal course. Hitting fairways typically can be a little difficult here. And there is 3 long par 3s that are 200 plus that are really the toughest holes on the course. So I'd say that's the 3 major factors. What I remember from past is that, bar none, play the guys that are the best Bermuda putters first, and then guys that are just accurate, so the plotters, the guys that drive the ball well, hit the fairways, and of course you need them to be good on approach, but it is definitely accuracy over distance. Hence, Brendan Todd, one of the shortest drivers, but the most accurate, and then also Brian Gay falls right into that camp. So we take a quick look at the Port Royal again. You can go find, I always state this, if you've never seen the tournament or want to see a little more, just refresh your brain, go check out YouTube, type in round 1 highlights of the Bermuda 2021, and watch some of that, and you'll get some really good understanding. Of course, I just saw this was a quick little map, so you can see the extra water I mentioned. Looks like it comes into play on 17, comes into play on number 1 in front of the green. And I don't think you could really say it comes into play on number 2 unless you're just terrible. Number 3 looks like it's in front of the green on a par 3. So again, and there's some trainers, you can see some high rough if you get off the beaten path. This would be a par 3 here. But it's like I said, it's a gorgeous course. It's just, whatever the wind does is what's going to dictate the scoring. And then this is actually the signature hole number 16. They actually have an old, I don't know what you call it, like an old war army kind of bunker that's built in here to protect the coast at one time, a long time ago. But yeah, this just gives you, again, some trees, but you can see, nothing crazy. It's really a bit of a putting contest when it comes down to it. Not too far off what we saw from the Vegas swing. And then we go look at the scorecard just to get, kind of an understanding. Right off the bat is one of the more tougher holes, a little bit longer par four, but there is 3 par fives that are very gettable. As you see, some of the easiest holes on the course where you got to make your birdie eagle opportunities. You've also got some short par fours, so proximity to the pin for guys that are like 75 to 100, 100 to 125, I think is going to be key. And then I mentioned these par threes, 213, 235, 235 are the toughest holes. And, if you are playing showdown, the back 9, which is kind of rare, definitely is tougher than the front 9. So it's all up to you if you think, if you have a theory that you like your guys to get warmed up and get some birdies on the board, you might want to pick the guys that are starting on the front. Also, which might make sense, is if you take guys that are early in the morning, starting on the front. Well, I take that back. Early in the morning, starting on number 10, they would have a little better advantage of scoring maybe a little better on the back. And then as maybe the winds start to pick up a little more in the afternoon, they would be hitting the easier hole. So just something to think about. Also pulled up the official scorecard and just verified that nothing has changed from this information. So every hole is exactly the same. And yes, the scorecard, for whatever reason, came across a little goofy, but in short, all the yardages, nothing's changed. So we're good to go there. So again, I'm going to reiterate, but how do you win here? And what are the players that we are looking for? From a stroke gain analysis side, and again, even though we're not getting stroke gain information from the past tournaments here, but in short, everything that comes up that I've seen and watched in my past knowledge is that it's the best putters on Bermuda. Just if one is saying the 2 years that it was here prior, so how could you go against that? And then also you can look at the guys that were in the top 10, and again, guys that are pretty decent putters show up. We need guys, again, that hit the ball. So when you say good drives, that's guys, not so that they're hitting it far, but they're hitting fairways, or maybe hitting the first cut, but they're hitting the greens on their approach. That's what a good drive stroke gain approach, stroke gain analysis includes. You also need guys always, approach is always key to give you those scoring opportunities of 20 feet and in. The proximity to the pin, I don't have, an exact how many shots come in, but if you just go through the scorecard, it's pretty quickly you can see the average tour player hits it minimum 280 to 300. And so quickly you can start doing some math. And so 75 to 100 is definitely going to be, so guys that hit their, sand wedges in from there. And then 100 to 125 would be the 2 proximity pins that I'll be looking at. I already mentioned the par threes. We're going to be plugging that into the model. Also, they got to make their hay on the par fives as always, even eagle opportunities, but definitely the birdies. Around the green, could definitely show up here. Sand saves does show up from past. And we need guys that are going to make birdies. As I said, you had a discrepancy of 15 under to 24 under. I would lean if the wind doesn't blow, these guys are going to be 20 under or better. Okay, so all that said, I did a quick model, and this is my larger model, and I'm looking at just purely recent form with no filters turned on whatsoever. And the model, how I weighted it, is putting at 15%. Good drives at 10%, ball striking. I put that in. It kind of doubles up on approach and off the tee, but threw that in for 5%. Also, again, kind of reiterated, because we can get fairway gain and greens gain data, I threw that in just to make sure that was coming up. So as mentioned on the par threes, the longer ones, 200, 225, I put that at 10%. Proximity coming in as those 2 numbers I just mentioned at 5 each. Approach, I put up to 15%. Sand saves around the green, birdies at 10%, and then I also even threw in eagles. And without any filters, you click my rank, and who do you get number 1 over the last 12 rounds of golf or 3 tournaments? You're going to see some guys maybe missed a cut. But Bo Hoag, funny enough, comes up number 1. And you're going to see Draftkings does not have pricing out, but if you look at the odds, that's going to tell you where these guys will fall from who's going to cost the most or not. So Bo Hoag will not be one of your more expensive guys, but Bezaden Hoot, who I put Christian on my opening slide or cover, and also think he's going to be one of my favorites to win this event. When I think of Bermuda putters, the only thing where Christian Bezaden falters a little bit is with the driver once in a while, but everything else is spot on for what I'm looking for. So anyways, that gives you some names. You got Hank Laboda still looking for that win. Was in great form and then kind of fell apart, but I liked him from a betting side. Yeah, all the guys that I'm going to mention when we go into the analysis, probably pretty much put a bet on. And then best on Bermuda Greens. I think this is probably one of the most important things I could show you guys. I took the last 24 rounds that they played on Bermuda Greens. They had stroke gain data. So that's the key too. So a lot of this would be Florida swing. I think the Palmetto, where Higo actually popping up. He won that tournament. You also had Hadley, which I don't believe he's in this field, but would be a good play. And again, I'm telling you right off the bat, the narrative that I'm going with is exactly what I've been explaining to you guys. That I'm going to be looking for guys that are good putters, and it's going to go from there on Bermuda. So for me, you could take this slide, take these guys, and kind of build your teams accordingly if you're doing DFS or making bets. Now, Patrick Reed, he does pop up here, and he's probably going to be one of the more expensive, but his game's been terrible. And he will not be one of my picks. His putting has not been that great either. Now, again, when you look at the names in this field, you're going to probably want to play Patrick Reed, but like I said, until he shows me something better, missing cuts in easy tournaments, really I've not seen the form for a while. So anyways, side note. Accurate drivers. So this is just looking at guys who've been hitting fairways, getting opportunities from that over their last 12 rounds. Mito Piera, who, has still been an amazing ball striker, hitting fairways, greens, just been not good with the putter. What does it show up? Yeah, you can see right here, 105th. So he's been struggling crazy there. Nick Watney is actually an interesting. I mean, if you just look at these three, these two main stats, he's been, putting well and hitting fairways. I think he's a good bet. Brian Stewart, I bet him. I think he's a great play. He's the kind of prototypical guy I think about. I think even Vaughn Taylor is real interesting here. So anyways, just give you some ideas. Again, it's a pretty ugly field, but there is still areas to make money from a betting perspective. And then, of course, if you're, doing from DFS, and typically guys that are still playing DFS golf right now, they know a bit what they're doing. You're not going to get those guys that are, it's the players, the masters, or whatever. But anyways, give you some more information. These are some more names you might want to look at to roster. Okay, and then the other area that I think is important, as I mentioned, is the long par threes, some of the hardest holes on this course. So here's some other names, some guys that you might want to look at. This Takumi Kanyana, he just had, or Kanyana, I'm just butchering that name, had a really good showing here just recently at the Zozo. But there's a kind of an interesting thought, and I didn't even pull up what is the kind of travel time, but it's got to be a hike from Bermuda to from Japan. So if you saw some of those guys that flew over, like Ricky Fowler, they were talking to, and I think even Xander Schauffele, who had a terrible tournament. They were a bit jet lag and probably never got on a good sleep pattern. So you could flip that around into guys that did play at the Zozo playing here, which I think is pretty minimal. But we come across that, you might want to maybe fade those guys a little bit. But this guy kind of came out of nowhere, and I believe, I'm not sure it was him, but one of these guys that started with a K, was an Asian, shot 7 under the last day. I have to pull up the list. I don't know if it's Kenyana, but anyways, if the guys that have done well, Austin Eckroat, right, college phenom, Thomas Detri, I'm interested in him. I think the last time we would have saw him would have been at the Olympics, actually, over in Japan. Trying to see anybody else sticks out. Danny Willett and Jason Duffner, funny enough, some old school guys, but Jason Duffner has been playing pretty golf. Still a terrible putter, but has had some good finishes. Danny Willett, of course, your Masters champions, not done bad. I mean, funny enough, when you see Danny Willett, one of your top ranked guys. Hayden Buckley, another college phenom. Ryan Armour, just in my brain, just fits this course. Kind of a plotter, not the greatest putter on Bermuda, but has done well here. And on that note, let's look at some comp courses. So if you're just trying to find guys, if you just go through these courses or tournaments and looked at who's done well, maybe top 5, I think you're going to have, a decent list of guys that could also do well here. I think the best comparable course out of all of these would be the Sony Open, which is played at Wailea Country Club. It's a par 70, very similar in yardage and is also Bermuda Greens. The yardage there is 7,044, so almost identical. You got the Puerto Rico Open that played at Cocoa Beach. Again, now this is a little different, but it is, a pure island course. But that's a par 72, 7,500 yards past Palm. You've got Corrales at the Punta Cana Resort and Club. That also is a little longer track, par 72, 7,600 yards, also past Palm. Mayakoba is not could be a decent, from a distance. So it's a par 72, but the yardage is actually 7,000 yards, and that's past Palm. RSM, now if you get back over here in the States, they play at Sea Island, Georgia. That's a really good one too, par 70, 7,000 yards, and that's on Bermuda. And then last but not least, RBC. I think tougher track at Harbor Town, real small greens. But it is Bermuda Greens, par 71, and just a little over 7,000 yards. So anyways, that's the courses when I go through. I'll plug these in, see how the guys that we're looking at have done there. But just to give you an idea. And then some of this is, I'm not saying all these courses were plugged in here, but some of these were. And so over the last 12 rounds that they played on these similar kind of tracks and fields, if you want to know who's done well, Denny McCarthy comes up number one. Nick Hardy, Hadwin, Chase Seifert. Camilo Villegas, great iron player, could be very good putter on Bermuda. Can struggle off the tee. There's my Brian Stewart. Who else pops up here? Alex Smalley, which is kind of funny. Must have played once, yeah, because like I said, Corn Ferry guy. And there's my Vaughn Taylor popping up the end. So again, just give you some ideas of some guys you want to play. Okay, let's go jump over into Fantasy National and let's do some analysis. Okay, so jumping over to Fantasy National, again, highly recommended. If you are doing any kind of analysis for golf, this is the best tool out there. I've been using it for, several years. But I think it's the easiest way for me to kind of give you guys a deeper in look into kind of what I'm doing. And also you can kind of come up with your own ideas. I do have Bermuda on, which is a little different for me. Typically, I don't put any filters. But for this, I think it is very applicable. Because like I said, it is going to pull up some older data, but worst case, it's going to get us, like the Palmetto. It's going to get us like Valspar, some of the Florida swings. But I'm okay with that because I think it's so crucial for this tournament. Hence it is the Bermuda, but it really does come down to putters. And so what we're looking at here is kind of like what they call a sneak peek, but it's a dashboard that is going to show you a mini model that I created. So pulling out some of those key metrics into just 5 stroke gain categories that I want to look at. Usually I do birdies here. I've changed that. Birdies are going to be there. And this is going to show you who do, the putting splits, who does better on that. And then, of course, you got recent results and tournament history. Now, a lot of these guys have not played here, but some have. So we're going to be able to look at that. I'm going to give you my top 15 picks, period, for the whole tournament, and then you can use those for DFS. Again, from a betting perspective, if the odds make sense, I'm betting them. But like these kind of odds, 11-1, 10-1, 14-1, it's just I'm not betting it. It's not worth my time. I'm not putting $1,000 on a guy, especially in golf. I'm a firm believer that this is the sport that you can hit the 100-1, 200-1. And so that's typically, I bet the higher odds guy. Now, sometimes, depending, I will, make a bet if it's, 25-1 or whatever. But long story short, I will also tell you the guys that I'm looking at from a betting perspective. The first guy that comes up, probably going to be the most expensive, is Matthew Fitzpatrick. Of course, if you also follow golf, you'll know that he just won on the European Tour, the Indulche Masters, I believe is how you pronounce it. And that's, pretty interesting because over in the States, Matthew Fitzpatrick has not been playing that great of golf, as you see recent results. I mean, he did show up at the Palmetto, which I think is an okay comp course. It is. Bermuda, it's a little bit of an island course, if you want to say, but the conditions, it was that kind of linksy, kind of, a lot of sand. But, I think you can look at that. But other than that, we haven't seen a whole lot out of Fitzpatrick. He's never played here before. But what does the guy do? He's a really freaking good putter. And we can go click on him. He's also usually pretty accurate with the driver. So you can see everything in here is kind of popping up that I want to see. And if you got to pick a first guy in, I think, Matthew Fitzpatrick, I will take him over Patrick Reed, put it that way. But you can see over his career on Bermuda Greens, the guy almost gains a stroke on the field. Now, again, that is, you can also see he can handle himself in the wind. So you kind of get a win-win there in short. If we probably the easiest way, because I don't think he's going to have played a lot of the courses that I mentioned, but we could just look at where he has. And so you can see Arnold Palmer, which is Bermuda, a bit of water in the Florida region. He came in second in 2019. One of the courses that I did have just recently, he did have a pretty good showing at RBC Heritage, which I think makes good sense. You need good irons, you need good putting. You see gain 7 strokes with the putter there. WGC St. Jude, not a bad comparable course. I believe that is Bermuda. Yeah, so it's TPC Southwind. So we could definitely look at that one too. That was recent. It's a par 70. It's short. It's Bermuda. It's not coastal, but it can get very windy there, hence the name TPC Southwind. So also, a good comparable. And let's click back on that, see if we see anything else here. Again, the Palmetto I mentioned, Arnold Palmer, he's had, at Bay Hill, which is a tougher track, longer track. I'm not saying that's a good comparable, but it is Bermuda Greens. Just seeing, scrolling down, RBC again, he's done pretty well at. Okay, so for me, I like Matthew Fitzpatrick again, and with you can kind of see I'm going with the guys that are just good putters. I already mentioned Christian Bezuidenhout. It's been a little bit since we saw him. For me, funny enough, when I think of Christian, I think about he had a good showing at the Dell Match Play. I don't know why, but that's what comes into my brain. If we, you can see he's number 1 in putting on Bermuda. So for me, right there, sold. You can see the driver is where he does struggle, but I don't need him to gain, and that's looking at gaining yards. It's not as much about accuracy, but you can see when he does putt on Bermuda, he's gaining over a stroke against the field. He can handle himself in the wind. I like all that. And you can see, from the time he gets, heading to the green, that's from approach on. It's just off the tee is where he can struggle. But you can see at RBC Heritage, he showed up, and we'll plug in those courses. I don't know if he's played a lot of them, but again, he's played quite a bit on the European. Let's just go this route. I think it's going to be easiest. So again, good at the Arnold Palmer, Bermuda, Arnold Palmer, decent showing at the RBC, another decent showing at the RBC. Trying to see if anything else pops up. So we're not going to have a lot because, again, more of a European player, but amazing enough. And I think he might be deciding to play more over here in the States. So we might be seeing more and more Christian Bezuidenhout. But again, I would guess these guys are going to be, from their odds, are going to be some of the more expensive price guys. I already told you, skipping on Patrick Reed. I mean, you can see missed a cut at Shriners, pulled out of the BMW, or did not. I think that was when he was not feeling well. We'll click on Patrick Reed just real quick to look at some stroke gain data. So over his career, like we know, Patrick Reed is a great putter, great short game. But this is what's making me nervous is, over his last 5 tournaments, just in a summary, losing, 2.5 strokes off the tee, losing 2 strokes on approach. And the putter hasn't been spectacular. He's had his moments where it's popped. The WGC St. Jude, he had a good putter, but everything else was terrible. The Wells Fargo, you could say back in May, and the Memorial, he had 2 good showings. And then pretty much since the summer, it's been pretty lackluster. Some miscuts, some 30ths. There's a reason why he did not make the Ryder Cup. And so with all that said, he's probably going to be priced up there, top 5 most expensive, if not maybe the most expensive. So from that perspective, I'll be off on Patrick Reed. I think Mito Pereira is not a bad play at all. I'm a fan of Mito. Was kind of all over him when he came and played. His first tournament was in Detroit, my local ground. Missed the cut, but the guy is, like I said, already great tee to green. I will probably plug him in from a showdown play, but I'm not going to put him in again. My perspective, I didn't play a lot of DFS last week, and almost had a team in showdown for Sunday, the finale, that was number 2 forever, and then at the end when Tringali fell apart on me, then it fell. But what I was getting to is I'll probably do a little bit of showdown, but from the large GPP DFS 100K game, maybe plug in 2 or 3 teams, but that's about it. More probably do some betting and showdown. Going with that, I would probably play Mito in a showdown perspective, but from a GPP large game, I probably would not be playing him. Hayden Buckley just, came off the Corn Ferry Tour in Fuego and has had amazing, past two tournaments. Sanderson Farms is Bermuda. Um, so you can see from a modeling perspective, but I think for what he's going to cost from a DFS perspective, I'll probably be out. Mateus Schwab, again, has had some decent recent form. Okay, so the guy that I'm going to land on next would be Seamus Power. And, pretty decent recent result. He's got a win at the Barbasol. He's also played here a couple times, a couple T30-ishes. If we look at Seamus Power, again, good putter, gains on Bermuda. Not the best in the win, so you could give a knock for that. But you can just see over his last 10 tournaments, everything has been real solid across the board. If we click on where he's done some of his damage, so this is what I thought was interesting is, he's had a fifth at Corrales, which I think is a great comparable course. The RBC, again, a good comparable course. Let me see. St. Jude, we said, could be a good comparable. The Palmetto recently had a good showing. Again, the Puerto Rico Open, OHL Mayakoba, Corrales. So, yeah, everything I'm seeing from Seamus Power, I am digging. I already mentioned some of these guys. Danny Willett, like I said, has had it for Danny Willett. He's had an okay kind of recent history. I told you about Kenyana that came at a T7 here at the Zozo. So maybe he's found some recent form. I don't know anything about the guy. I'm not going to pretend I do. But, I'm going to kind of pass. You got Chad Ramey, again, coming out the Corn Ferry, been playing good golf. Had a T14 at Shriners, but I'm not sure exactly where he'll come in pricing. But I'm looking at his odds. If I had to pick, I'd rather end up on an Adam Hadwin, who's had, pretty decent recent history. He's actually never played here before, but again, he just shows up with the putter. Of course, Poa is his best, but Bermuda is a positive. Also, I like what I've seen here in the last two events he's been at. He's been gaining quite a bit of strokes with the putter. And been, last five events, it's kind of a resurgent for Adam Hadwin, the Canadian. Never the greatest driver of the ball or from a distance perspective, but again, I don't need that. I need guys good on approach, good putters on Bermuda. We click on Adam. Let's just go see where he's done. So Valspar, I want to confirm, but yeah, is a par 71 Bermuda. Tough course. I'm not saying it's they're similar, but it is a Bermuda green. I think the Amex, where they play that at the stadium course, that could be a pretty good comparable. It's less than 7,200 yards. It is a par 72, but it's Bermuda. So he has done pretty well on that track. So he's had really good showings at the Amex. See where else everything pops up that could be applicable. Mayakoba OHL, he's played there twice. Island course, had a couple tenths. And scrolling down, anything else pop up? Nope. But I like Adam Hadwin for that price that I think it's going to be. If I'm picking between a guy that's, played one or two tournaments on the PGA versus Adam Hadwin, I'll take him. Guido Migazzoli is going to be here, right? I think the first time we remember him kind of showing up was at the U.S. Open out of nowhere, chipped everything in. But when I think of him, I think of Mito Pereira. No data is really coming up here, but in short, the guy is a good golfer. I mean, he's good tee to green. I think it's same thing, whatever happens with the putter. You got Joseph Bramlett, a bomber, won a Corn Ferry Championship. I was kind of on him quite a bit, for when, the tournaments after he came out and just hasn't done what I was hoping. Patrick Rogers showed up at the Fortinet. Has played her before. He's got a miscut at T59, but, someone that could be pretty live here. Sathith Thagala, right? He showed up and was, I think, leading the Sanderson Farms after day two. Then kind of fell back. The drivers started to kind of hook on him. But, could be a decent play here. I think from a showdown perspective, he's interesting. Stefan Jaeger, had a great Corn Ferry tour, but has really not translated over. So, not too excited. Taylor Pendrith, again, another showdown guy I like. Uh, he does have that little peak power. But again, going to kind of skip the Corn Ferry guys. The next guy I'm going to land on for that kind of where I'm guessing Denny McCarthy is going to fall in pricing. I'm all over Denny McCarthy. I bet him. He's one of the lower odd bets, but I just think he could do again a great putter. You see, ranked number 2 in putting, and has had some. Sanderson Farm at a T17, showed up at the Wyndham, and then if you look at Denny McCarthy, where he's done, had some good finishes again on Bermuda Gains. We'll just say almost a stroke against the field. Can handle himself okay in the wind. You can see here, off the tees that could where he can get in trouble, but has been okay there. The putter, funny enough, has been on and off, but the last time on Bermuda at Wyndham, gained 5 strokes there, gained 3 at the 3M. Sanderson Farms, again, Bermuda, gained 3 strokes. If we go look at where he's done, so the Honda, he's had a 3rd here recently, but he's had a 4th at Bermuda, a 4th at Corrales. Sanderson Farms are all Bermuda. RSM, he's had an 8th. The Bermuda again. St. Jude, Wyndham. So short Bermuda courses. Denny McCarthy is the guy that I like to play. So I'm all over that. I mentioned Thomas Detri. Just from what I know about him, it just seems like a good fit. The guy is a really good putter. If you go look at, Corrales would be a good T13. We don't see him a whole lot. I think I said the last time I actually watched him golf was at the Olympics, but you can see when he has played on Bermuda, and we have stroke gain data, he gains almost, over, we'll say a stroke and a quarter. And if I pull up where he's done pretty well, like I said, we don't have a lot of data on him, but he has played at Corrales 3 times, and every time it's been a pretty good showing. So, again, everything that I know about his game, I think it could be a very good fit here. Garrick Higo, I mentioned he won the Palmetto. He hasn't really seen a whole lot since, so let's go click on Garrick. But, of course, the model came up. Love what I've got. Good on Bermuda. Can play in the wind. And I mentioned the Palmetto, which was Bermuda. Since then, he hasn't done a whole lot. But if you think about, so he had, 2 or 3 wins on the European Tour, and they were all on the Gran Canary Islands, which is all island courses and very similar to this. I bet him outright to win. I think it was at Draftkings. It was pretty similar to that. But I'm all over Garrick Higo. I think he could do very well here. I think it'd be, I don't want to say sneaky play, but for this field, from the talent perspective, I think, definitely very high on him. And it's not about the model ranking. It is honestly what he's done on the Gran Canary and when he plays island courses, and I'm going with that. So, and what he can do on Bermuda and in the wind. Next guy, Ryan Armour. Out of this field, again, you can see this is a bit of a horses for courses play. He's played her, the past 2 years, had T8s both times. And it just, again, like a Brian Stewart, stature, the way he plays the game. You can see I mentioned, not the greatest putter. So but you can see recently he's been gaining with the putter. Good off the tee, good on approach. You can see he had his spike at the Barbasol, the 3M. The Palmetto, he had an 8th. We can go look and see where he's done some of his damage. So Sanderson Farms, that's a while ago, but it is Bermuda Greens. Funny enough, a lot of these guys that we're pulling up has done well at the Sanderson Farms. I think the Sanderson Farms is a more difficult course, more tree line, a little longer, but maybe there's something there. See where else. The Wyndham, Mayakoba. That's a real long time ago, but it is Mayakoba. He's had a good showing. You can see the Bermuda. Where he has spiked, it has been these kind of courses, RSM, the Amex. So yeah, I'm on Ryan Armour. I think this course just fits him. Everything that I know. I think Scott Stallings has had a pretty decent history here. He could be a pretty good play. He's got some pop in the bat off the tee. So definitely, he had that showing at the Fortinet, which is the old Safeway. Other than that, it's been kind of rough. So, I was kind of Nick Watney, been playing some decent golf for Nick Watney. Right, he almost won the Sanderson Farms. And that, that's a little bit why he came on my radar. But the one surface he has gained is Bermuda over his career. You can see the putter went in fuego on Bermuda, so maybe that got that skewed up there. But you can see it's been a while since Nick Watney has won. And at Sanderson Farms was like the last time he was relevant for a while. Trying to see where else he's had some success for you. The Safeway. There's the RSM. Let me just type in for him just because it might be easier. So has he ever played Corrales? So he missed the cut back in the spring at Corrales. What about the Sony? Has he played at the Sony? Missed the cut. Let's click on date here. Missed the cut here recently. I mean, again, Nick Watney. It's been a rough go for him, so don't get me wrong. But with that spike and what he has done at times on Bermuda, I'm kind of interested in him. And also bet him. Who knows? RBC. So, yeah, I mean, Nick Watney, it's a stretch. But, from a putting perspective, he has shown some recent life. The Safeway, Shriners, and, made 3 cuts, almost won a tournament. I'm interested. Now, funny enough, Russell Knox is actually, this is going a little against what I said. He is not a good putter, but he has played here twice, has a good course history. And funny enough, where Russell Knox has done well is shorter, kind of island courses. So you kind of look at his so you got the Travelers, so there's RBC, and then look at it, Mayakoba twice. This is a little while ago, but it's where he's done well. The St. Jude, again, OHL, which we have the Mayakoba, which is coming up here. What else? The Sony, the Bermuda, the Sony. So again, Russell Knox, funny enough, if the putter works for him, I'd bet him. I think he's a great play. And you can see there's already projected ownership's a bit up there. Alex Smalley, has been playing great off the Corn Ferry. Again, another guy I like to play in Showdown. He can definitely get it cooking. But, funny enough, out of these two, I'd rather play Russell Knox right now. I just feel more comfortable. Molinari, I looked at long and hard because I've said this, kind of the fall tournaments is where he spikes. He's played her once at a T21, and he can get super hot with the putter on Bermuda. I know right here is not showing a good putter, but typically when we go look at his long career splits to give you a better understanding, he is typically a decent putter. Gains on Bermuda, almost a half stroke. Gains on POA. So someone that you could definitely look at. Trying to see. I mentioned already Duffner. If you're looking to get that 6 guy, and I mean it's just I'm just terrified of the putter. But has been striking the crap out of the ball. And you can just see so good in wind, and over his career, it's tee to green, pretty elite. It's just with the putter, and he has had a couple, positives with the putter. So again, someone that I might look at from a Showdown, but from a overall DFS perspective, funny enough, Graham McDowell, what's his? I can't believe he hasn't played her. This is a perfect, almost like a Luke Donald, Graham McDowell course. His just form has been so bad. And I haven't checked anything on the European side for him, but could be a sneaky play. Then Hank Laboda, though, for this kind of odds, and again, I'm guessing he's going to be priced accordingly. This is what is making people nervous. But look what he's done here in the past. And then if we go take a bigger picture, right, he had that surge right here, right? So back in July, he had an 8th, a 4th, a 5th, a 31st, a 17th. The guy was on fire. And then, like I said, he, for whatever reason, pulled out of a tournament. I can't remember. And I don't think it was due, from what I understand, it was not due to health reasons. It was due to personal reasons. But man, then his game just went to shit. But I'm waiting for it to come back. I'm still holding out that Hank Laboda is going to get a win. And so that's my play there. And again, great tournament history, and has had some nice form, but just not recently. Trying to see if anybody else. Brian Stewart, I kind of already mentioned. I think is a perfect fit. I mean, course history, doesn't show up as well. And also what you see here does not look good. But if we go click on Brian Stewart, dive in a little more details, you do see he does gain on putt up Bermuda over the rest of his career. Really good short game, on and off the tee. The last time he really kind of spiked for us would have been at the Travelers. He also showed the John Deere, the 3M. He had a nice little run here too in July, and then has kind of fallen off a little bit. Let's also look at some of the comparables where he's done well. So if you look, he's killed it at OHL or Mayakoba. This is the same exact thing here. Again, it's a while ago. The Sony, the Puerto Rico, the Amex, the Sony. So again, he does well on these island courses. I mean, there was even more. Funny, OHL. I mean, literally, all his best finishes have come on these kind of tracks. So that's why I like Brian Stewart. Brian Gay, how you cannot play this guy? I get it. He's terrible form. I put a bet on him. I'm like 100 to 1. Why not? A third, a first. The guy just is lights out putter on Bermuda. So hopefully he's priced accordingly. And it, because like I said, he's not shown a whole lot of life. I mean, let's see here. So since his win, he did play in a Tournament of Champions, which I would have used that because I think it is a good comparable. But that's the top 40 guys, and we don't have the top 40 guys playing in this tournament, so I thought it'd be kind of a waste. But yeah, pretty much after that, he kind of just fell apart. But something about this course when he comes here in Bermuda Greens and it's short, Brian Gay can navigate it. So yeah, actually, let me do something real quick with Brian Gay. Let me just see where he's had. So Bermuda win, the Amex short course win, the Bermuda third, RSM short course, RSM. So yeah, everything again. The Sony is saying Bermuda short course, Brian Gay, play me. And I think that's it. I did put an outright bet on Adam Svensson. I just like him. I like to play him, and he just gets super quickly hot. So, he played a little bit on the PGA Tour. I've talked about this guy before. Lost his card, and then did well enough at the Corn Ferry to come back. So I think it was 100 to 1, 100 to 10. I placed a bet on him, and I kind of like him. All right, that's really it from the guys that I'm looking at, and let me summarize that because I didn't build again, I don't have the time right now, and I just don't think there's enough people really watching and interested enough to really go through and build out this, kind of my presentation I usually do. So I apologize for that, but hey, I'm still getting you guys the information, still sticking with you through the even the island swing here, the vacation swing. But to summarize the guys that I like from a DFS and from a betting perspective, Matthew Fitzpatrick and Christian Bezainhout, I think that's your number 1 and 2 from my perspective. I like Seamus Power, Adam Hadwin, Denny McCarthy, I think also could be a great play here. Like Thomas Detri, Garrick Higo, you got Ryan Armour, Nick Watney, Russell Knox, Hank Laboda, Brian Stewart, Brian Gay, Vaughn Taylor. Oh, I didn't get to these guys. I apologize. So the guys that from a value play, I think the two best value plays here would be Danny Lee and also Vaughn Taylor. I will go click on those guys. They were so far down there, I did not find them. But you can see Mr. Vaughn Taylor, over the life of his career, gains on Bermuda, can play in the wind. And if we look at where he's done some of his damage, again, OHL, AT&T, right? That's Pebble Beach. So that's not a terrible, it's, an ocean course, small greens, shorter track, RSM. So again, I like Vaughn Taylor. Could be a great play. And then Danny Lee, it's kind of fallen off everybody's radar. It's been a while since that name is kind of registered with me. Barely gains, but we kind of look at where he's had. So he had a 19th at the Palmetto. He's done well at the OHL, the Tour Championship a long time ago, the Puerto Rico, OHL, Arnold Palmer, which is, just Bermuda. That's really why I bring that up. Valspar's Bermuda. Yeah, I think he could be a sneaky play. And I mean, from the odds that you're getting, I think it's a good bet. At 160, it should be somewhere around that when you get to DraftKings. Yes, the model is what picked him up to my brain, but then once I did a little more analysis, I think Danny Lee could be a solid play. So, with that said, that summarizes it. And let's go jump back over and wrap this thing up. Okay, so if you do me the great honor, again, if you are new or been with me for a while, click the like button, share it with whoever else. If you've not subscribed, I need you guys to subscribe. Again, just kind of hovering around the threshold. I know that golf from a DFS perspective is not what's on people's brains. Everybody, even myself, is on a football brain, but I'm still in it. I'm still playing golf, still delivering for you guys. Of course, it'll kick more up here, like I said, when the Houston Open gets going. Like I said, with the island tour, the vacation swing. Again, we don't get stroke gain data. Also, you get really bad fields. So I understand that. But hit the subscribe button. And again, if I can help you, got any questions, hit me up on YouTube comments. Follow me on the Twitter sphere at DFS Golf Guru. I do still keep an eye on withdrawals, like Carlos Ortiz, who withdrew halfway, I think, through the second day. They said it was a shoulder injury. I always kind of interested when guys aren't playing that well that somehow all of a sudden they can't play through whatever it is. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. This is the only show I'm going to be doing, for you guys this week. But hope it's enough to at least get you going on your DFS or some bet plays. All right, take care, and I'll talk to you guys. I think next week, is the Mayakoba, if I remember right. So, yeah, talk to you guys then.